Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you all here. I'm Greer Murphy, the Director of Academic Honesty for Policy and Education in Arts, Sciences, and Engineering at the University of Rochester. I'm joined today by Dr. James Orr of the University of Memphis. Hi, James. And Dr. Alexis Rambi-Tobian of Eckerd College. Hi, Alexis. We're here today to give an update on the development of the faculty survey project, which Alexis and I have worked on since 2020, and James joined last year. So first, we'll discuss broad goals of this survey compared to the student instrument. Next, we'll review where we started versus where we are now. And we'll take a look at as much of the survey as possible, 2 different chunks of it, most likely. So if you're willing to take parts of it in real time, that would be fantastic. And of course, we'll share initial impressions and feedback. Finally, although COVID has upended our plans a bit, as it has the plans of so many others, we'll give our best guess as to what progress looks like from here and when you can expect a more fully validated instrument to be ready for wider piloting and implementation. So without further ado, let's get started. We think it's important to step back and consider the big picture here. Not so much what we're here to do, we'll get to that, but why. So in a nutshell, here's what we're hoping to get out of this instrument specifically. First, we'd like to keep as much parity as possible with items from the student survey. Not only is direct comparability interesting from a research perspective, but for institutions that choose to administer both, there will be practical benefits to this as well. Second, perhaps most important, we'd like to bring a slightly stronger pedagogical focus to the survey than was initially represented in the McCabe instrument from the 1990s. Or than is present perhaps in the McCabe 2.0 student-facing instrument that's currently in the field. We see this principally in question 6, which does carry over from the 1990s McCabe instrument. Number 7, which asks specifically about course design, and the open-ended items included at the end of our survey. And you'll get to see some of those when you take parts of the survey later. Third, as exemplified by these open-ended items, we see this survey as the beginning of the story in seeking faculty perspectives, not the end of it. On the one hand, the messiness of qualitative data puts us in tension with our desire to keep the survey as short and efficient as possible. But on the other, one beneficial effect of this mess might be to encourage campuses to follow up with stakeholders in a more sustained way. That's what we started to do here at Rochester. We piloted a very early version of the survey just last year, and it has resulted in some very generative conversations. We also see possibilities for overlap with the academic integrity rating system, which is an assessment tool ICAI is also developing, focused on evaluating the integrity climate of our member institutions. I believe Dr. Bertram Gallant, Tricia, will have a session about that later in the week. And then fourth and finally, as an enhancement to McCabe, we wanted to use language and questions that encompass the full range of instructional roles and contexts that survey takers are increasingly likely to occupy. So this includes secondary schools, technical trade schools, as well as post-secondary schools and institutes. And in our demographic section, which we won't preview today, we've got a question about faculty identity, thinking of part-time instructors and other kinds of instructional staff. So with these goals in mind, here's a brief recap of our progress so far. Along with a third colleague, Alexis and I began working together after the Portland conference, which led to efforts in the summer of 2020 to compile faculty-facing instruments, including the pre-existing version of the McCabe faculty survey, and extrapolate the most relevant and useful items for our purposes. Then through fall and winter, we got feedback from some very generous with their time colleagues. So we appreciate the work you all helped us do, who commented on the instrument when it was, let's just say, substantially longer than it is now. From this feedback, we streamlined, cutting some questions and focus areas, rewording and revising others, and presented to the ICAI board for a comparison to the still developing student instrument. We did give one update presentation at ICAI in spring 2021. Some of you may have even been in the virtual audience at that time. And we spent most of our time that summer and fall and winter working on IRB approval, and exploring further options for piloting and validation. Which of course brings us back to this moment, spring 2022, and the version of the survey that we'll be sharing parts of with you in just a moment. So now I'm going to turn things over to James.
Thank you all so much for joining us. What I'm going to do is talk about the survey outline that we have, also how the survey is divided, and then what we're doing in today's session. So our survey it starts off with an introductory text where it really discusses our commitment to preserve confidentiality for all the survey respondents. Then we move on into an explanation of the context of the survey. Specifically, the survey is designed for instructors at post-secondary institutions, and that could be a post-secondary school, college, university, and or technical college. And we specifically asked about the respondents' experiences over the last 12 months. The next thing we do is move into an explanation of the various definitions and terminology that'll be used throughout the survey. Now, once we've given that context, we've talked about the confidentiality statement, we've talked about the context of the survey and the definitions, then we move on to the actual questions of the survey. The survey is divided into 20 questions that, and some of those 20 questions have sub-questions in them, and it's a mixture of open-ended questions, multiple choice questions, and multiple response questions. We specifically divide the survey into 6 overarching themes. Theme 1 is when, where, and how are you informed about academic integrity policies? And then how do you inform your students about those academic integrity policies? Theme 2 talks about the type of cheating or academic dishonesty that you may have observed in the classroom. Then we move into theme 3. And theme 3 talks about safeguards and pedagogy practices that are used to prevent academic dishonesty from occurring. Then we move into theme 4. And theme 4 is really a grouping of questions that ask about the responses to cheating. So if you observe cheating or some form of academic dishonesty occurring, how do you respond as an instructor? And then why do you respond the way you respond? Then we move into the set of open-ended questions, and these are a set of questions that really allow us to receive feedback from you on things that maybe we didn't cover or areas that you'd like to expound on in terms of that would really help with the culture of academic integrity. And then finally, we conclude with a set of demographic questions. So today, what we'll do is we will give you an opportunity to complete parts of the survey and really tell us about what you think. We'll talk about the types and the severity of cheating and really the pedagogical practices that are designed to maybe prevent academic misconduct from occurring. So that's what we're doing today. Thank you so much. I hope we don't get in this situation where we have to use this video because I'd like to ensure that we're able to engage with you in a live manner. Thank you so much.
Now that you've had a chance to take the survey, we'd like to solicit some of your feedback. Just to remind you, we asked you to take 2 sections of the survey. One section was looking at the severity and frequency of academic dishonesty on your campus. In this section, we asked you to think about campus policies and how often those policies are discussed. We also often asked you to think about how often academic dishonesty behaviors occur in your course and the kinds of academic dishonesty that you're noticing. To help contextualize these discussions, we also asked you to share with us some of your pedagogical attitudes and choices and beliefs. So we asked you to tell us the kinds of courses you teach and what you do in those courses. Do you tend to do more writing assignments or more exams? Do you tend to do more group work or more discussion sections? We also asked you to share with us how you personally work to mitigate academic dishonesty in these courses. What kind of choices do you make in your teaching and in your assignment design? And in general, in your course design? We also asked you to share with us how you would respond to academic dishonesty if it occurred in a graded versus an ungraded assignment. So something like homework versus an informal presentation, let's say. In our live presentation, we hope to solicit feedback in a more interactive method. But for our purposes here, if you have any feedback to give us, please respond to our email, icaifacultysurvey@gmail.com. We'd love feedback that tells us, hey, here is something that you're missing. Here are things that are unclear. Here are ways that the survey maybe is too long or confusing. Here is what I think is really effective about the survey. Anything like that. And we're asking for your feedback because our goal is within the next year to actually start sending out the survey, to start compiling data. Right now, as Greer mentioned earlier, we're in the process of getting IRB approval. And over the next few months, we're going to work to hone our survey so that it stays, in that sweet 15 to 20 minute length of time, so that it addresses all the academic integrity concerns that are rising out of life in this post-pandemic era where so many of us are stressed, students and professors and administrators alike. And we'll also be working to make sure that our survey is complementary with the student survey that is currently being administered. So that'll be kind of the first half of 2022. And the second half is when we'll start soliciting for schools that will take our survey and start kind of getting the word out so that by next spring, by this time, we'll either be in the process of sending out the survey or even compiling results. So we're very close to the finish line. We thank you for the feedback that you have given us. And we are really looking forward to seeing the results of this survey because I think it will help us be, at least for me, as a professor in a classroom, a better teacher. I think those of us who do academic integrity work, it'll help us be better academic integrity officers. And hopefully it'll give our universities and colleges some really interesting food for thought as we think about ways to mitigate academic dishonesty in the 21st century. Thank you very much.